Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. It started with one small accident that would change her entire life. Anna Reed's hands were trembling slightly as she balanced the tray of steaming coffee cups. It was her third double shift this week at the downtown hotel cafe, and the morning rush felt endless. Her manager's voice still echoed in her head smile, no matter what. So she did, even when her shoes were damp from spilled milk and her paycheck could barely cover rent. The elevator doors opened, and she hurried inside, clutching the tray tightly. The corporate floor smelled of cologne and power, a kind of place where everyone spoke in low, confident tones. She did not belong there, and she knew it. "Room 802, she whispered, repeating the order slip. "Just one delivery. Just keep your head down, drop off the coffee, and get out." But fate had other plans. As she turned the corner, a man in a tailored gray suit stepped out of a meeting room, phone pressed to his ear, eyes sharp and unreadable. The collision happened in an instant. Her tray tilted, the cups flew, and dark coffee splashed across his crisp white shirt and the front of his expensive suit. "Oh my God, sir, I am so sorry," she gasped, grabbing napkins in a panic. "I did not see you, please. Let me clean it." The man blinked, startled, then exhaled slowly. For a heartbeat, the world went silent except for the slow drip of coffee from his sleeve. His voice was calm, but carried authority. "It is fine," he said evenly, taking the napkin from her trembling hand. "Accidents happen," but there was something in his ice and intensity that made her pulse quicken. His name tag read Ethan Cole. She did not know it yet, but Ethan Cole was not just another businessman. He was the CEO of Cole Media Group, one of the most powerful communications companies in the country. To him, image was everything.
And right now, the image spreading across social media was him, drenched in coffee, with a terrified waitress trying to wipe his suit. Cameras from a nearby press event caught the moment. Within minutes, the photos went viral, coffee CEO trending everywhere. By the time Anna returned to the cafe, her manager was waiting, arms crossed. "You embarrassed the hotel. You are done here." The words hit harder than the hot coffee ever could. That night, in her tiny apartment, Anna stared at her phone, scrolling through the online comments. Who is she? Fire her. Poor girl looks terrified. She shut it off, tears threatening to fall. Meanwhile, miles away in his penthouse, Ethan Cole watched the same footage. His publicist was in a panic, shouting about the company's image. "We need damage control fast. You look arrogant, Ethan. Heartless." Ethan rubbed his temples, thinking. The last thing he needed was another scandal before the board meeting. Then his eyes fell back on the video, on the young woman's horrified face, and something unexpected crossed his mind. The next morning, when Anna opened the door of her building to leave for another job interview, a sleek black car was parked outside. A man in a suit approached. "Miss Reed?" he asked, handing her an envelope. Inside was a formal letter signed with an elegant signature, Ethan Cole. The message was simple but unbelievable. "Meet me tomorrow at noon. I have a proposal that could change your life." She froze, reading it again and again, heart pounding. She had no idea that the man whose suit she ruined was about to make her the strangest offer she had ever heard in her life. The next day, Anna stood in front of the mirrored elevator doors of Cole Media Group, holding the invitation letter in her shaking hands. Her reflection looked small and nervous against the polished steel. She had barely slept, replaying the accident and the humiliation again and again. Now, she was standing inside the very building that had fired her boss and terrified her world. When the elevator opened, she stepped out into a lobby that gleamed with marble and glass. Receptionists in black suits spoke softly into headsets, and everyone seemed to walk with purpose. "Miss Reed?" a woman in a charcoal dress asked, approaching her. Mr.
Cole is expecting you. Anna followed her through long corridors lined with framed magazine covers featuring Ethan Cole's sharp face and confident smile. They stopped at a corner office overlooking the skyline. The woman knocked once and opened the door. Ethan was standing by the window, suit pressed, tie perfectly aligned, his presence steady like the city behind him. "Miss Reed," he said calmly without turning. "Please have a seat." Anna sat down, clutching her bag on her lap. "Sir, if this is about the coffee, I already apologized." Ethan turned, cutting her off gently. "It is not about the coffee. It is about perception." He moved behind his desk, setting a tablet down with a news headline glowing on the screen. "Cold CEO humiliates waitress in viral video." Anna swallowed hard. "I never meant to cause trouble." I know." He interrupted again, his tone more measured now. "But trouble has a way of finding me lately." He paused, studying her expression. "My board is furious. Investors want me to look more human." "Human?" she echoed, confused. Ethan leaned forward. "Miss Reed, I need a public reset. A story that reminds people I am not a machine in a suit. They need to see warmth, connection, authenticity." He took a breath, then said the words that froze her heart. "I need a wife." For a moment, Anna thought she had misheard him. "Excuse me." Ethan did not smile. "A temporary arrangement. A contract marriage. 30 days. Appearances only." Anna stared wide-eyed. "That is insane. I do not even know you." "You do not have to," he replied. "My team will handle everything: documents, press statements, living arrangements. You will be compensated generously." He slid a folder across the desk. Inside was a typed agreement and a number that made her breath catch. It was more money than she had ever seen in her life. "This would cover your mother's surgery, rent, and a new start," he said matter-of-factly. "All you have to do is stand beside me, smile for the cameras, and look like you chose me." Anna's voice trembled. "Why me?" Ethan's gaze softened slightly. "Because you are real. Because when the world saw that video, they saw someone who looked terrified but honest. You did not fake a thing. That is what I need." Silence stretched between them. The city traffic hummed below, faint and distant. "You can walk away," he said finally. "No hard feelings."
"But if you sign, I expect professionalism. No complications. No falling in love." Anna let out a nervous laugh. "Do people actually fall in love in fake marriages?" Ethan's lips curved faintly. "They do in movies. This is business." She stared at the paper again. Her mother's fading eyesight flashed through her mind, the rent overdue, the half-written job applications. Pride screamed no, but desperation whispered yes. With a shaking hand, she picked up the pen. 30 days, she said softly. Ethan nodded once. 30 days. As she signed, a strange feeling settled in her chest, not relief, not fear, but the sense that she had just crossed a line she could never uncross. When she stood to leave, Ethan offered his hand. "Welcome to the arrangement." His handshake was firm, businesslike, and entirely devoid of warmth. Yet as Anna walked out of his office, she could not help glancing back. For just a second, she thought she saw something in his eyes, an emotion quickly buried beneath his polished exterior. By the time the elevator doors closed, her heart was pounding. A fake marriage with a man like Ethan Cole sounded impossible, but it was happening. Somewhere between survival and danger, Anna Reed was about to live a lie that might reveal the truth about them both. The following morning, Anna found herself standing in front of the grand glass tower of Cole Media once again, but this time she was not there as a frightened waitress. She was there as Ethan Cole's fiancée, or at least that was what the world was about to believe. A black car waited at the curb. Inside, a well-dressed assistant named Julia smiled professionally and handed Anna a sleek leather folder. "Miss Reed, here are the terms of the agreement. Mr. Cole asked me to go through them with you before your first public appearance." Anna opened the folder and read silently as Julia summarized in a precise tone. Clause 1, you will live at the Cole residence for 30 days. Clause 2, you will attend 5 official events as Mr. Cole's wife. Clause 3, privacy boundaries must be respected. No questions about his personal affairs. No physical involvement beyond public expectations. Anna raised her eyebrows. So this is really happening? Julia nodded, her expression unreadable. Mr. Cole values discretion. When the car pulled up to the Cole estate, Anna's breath caught.
The mansion looked like a modern fortress of glass and stone, its gates guarded, its lawn manicured to perfection. Inside, everything gleamed. The scent of polished wood and fresh lilies filled the air. "Good morning, Miss Reed," said the butler with a polite bow. "Your room has been prepared." Anna followed him up a marble staircase, past walls lined with abstract art. Her new room was larger than her entire apartment. She ran her fingers over the silk sheets, trying to process what her life had just become. Minutes later, Julia returned with a team of stylists. "You will need to be ready in 2 hours," she said. "There is a charity dinner tonight. It will be your debut as Mrs. Cole." As makeup artists worked around her, Anna's mind spun. She looked at the gown. They had chosen a navy dress that shimmered under the lights, elegant yet simple. "I feel like a fraud," she murmured. "Just smile," one of the stylists said softly. "That is what people see." Evening arrived like a wave of light and noise. The charity gala was hosted in a ballroom filled with the city's elite. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered. When Ethan appeared beside her in a dark tuxedo, every head turned. He looked composed, powerful, and untouchable. He offered his arm without a word. Anna took it, her pulse racing. "Relax," he said quietly. "You are doing fine." As they entered the room, people applauded. A journalist called out, "Mr. Cole, congratulations on the engagement. When did this romance begin?" Ethan's eyes flicked toward Anna. For a split second, she froze. Then she smiled and said, "It began with a cup of coffee that refused to behave." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Ethan's lips curved slightly, approving. They moved through the evening like a well-rehearsed dance, smiles, nods, brief touches for the cameras. Yet in between, Anna caught glimpses of something human beneath Ethan's corporate armor, the way his jaw tensed when someone mentioned his late father, the subtle sigh when a board member pushed for a merger he clearly hated. At one point, when the speeches ended and the band began to play, Ethan leaned closer. "You did well tonight," he said, his voice low enough for only her to hear. "You are a natural." "A natural liar, you mean?" she replied softly. His gaze met hers. "A convincing one," he said.
For a moment, there was silence between them, the kind that hummed with tension rather than comfort. Then he turned away, leaving her to wonder what kind of man hid behind that perfect smile. Later that night, back at the mansion, Anna slipped off her heels and wandered onto the balcony outside her room. The city glittered below, alive and distant. She thought about the contract, the performance, and the strange spark that flickered whenever Ethan looked at her. Somewhere in the distance, she heard footsteps. She turned to see Ethan standing in the doorway, jacket off, tie loosened, holding 2 cups of coffee. "I thought you might want the real thing this time," he said quietly. She took the cup, surprised by the gesture. "Thank you." He nodded, looking out at the skyline. "You handled yourself well tonight." "Better than I expected." "That sounds like a compliment," she said. "It is," he admitted, a faint smile crossing his face before he turned back inside. Anna watched him disappear into the hallway, her heart caught between suspicion and curiosity. This arrangement was supposed to be about business, about saving his image and saving her future. But as the night air brushed her skin, she realized something she could not put into words. Ethan Cole was not as cold as he seemed, and that might be the most dangerous part of all. Days turned into a blur of rehearsed smiles, chauffeured cars, and public appearances. Anna had officially become Mrs. Cole on paper, and the media loved the story. From waitress to wife of the most eligible CEO, the headlines screamed. Cameras followed her every move, and suddenly her name was everywhere. Inside the mansion, however, life was quieter, stranger, and far less glamorous. Ethan treated her with distant politeness, a man balancing between control and caution. Every morning, he left for meetings before dawn, and every night, he returned late, phone pressed to his ear, his voice firm and commanding. Yet sometimes, Anna caught him standing by the piano in the living room, staring at a framed photograph of a younger version of himself with an older man. When he noticed her watching, he always turned away. One evening, Julia appeared at Anna's door carrying a thick binder. "Your training schedule, Mrs. Cole," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes.
For the next 2 weeks, you will have etiquette lessons, wardrobe fittings, and interview rehearsals. We cannot have you looking nervous beside Mr. Cole on television." Anna forced a polite nod. Of course. The next days were exhausting. She learned how to pose naturally for photographers, how to answer scripted questions, and even how to hold Ethan's arm in public as if she belonged there. Every detail was controlled. But one afternoon, while rehearsing answers with Julia, Anna finally asked, "Does he ever smile for real?" Julia hesitated. "He used to, before his father died. Since then, the company has been his only family." That night, curiosity pulled Anna toward the library. The lights were low, and the air smelled faintly of coffee and cedar. Ethan was there, reading documents at his desk. "You should be asleep," he said without looking up. "So should you," she replied softly. He glanced up, expression unreadable. "Old habits. Work helps me think." Anna walked closer. "Or keeps you from feeling." His eyes met hers, sharp but not angry. "You are observant, Mrs. Cole." "That is part of the job," she said, trying to sound confident. He studied her for a moment, then closed the file in front of him. "Come with me," he said. Confused, she followed him through the hallway and out to the terrace. The city spread beneath them, lights shimmering like stars fallen to earth. "When I was a kid," Ethan said quietly, "my father used to bring me here after long board meetings. He said success means nothing if you cannot breathe." His tone softened, the steel in his voice fading for the first time. "Now I come here when I forget what that feels like." Anna looked at him, seeing the man behind the Hedlonisa man who carried more weight than anyone should. "You know," she said gently, "sometimes people just need permission to breathe again." Ethan turned toward her, and for a fleeting second, the space between them felt fragile, human. Then his phone buzzed, shattering the moment. He looked down, and the wall came back up. "I have to take this," he said, stepping away. Anna watched him disappear into the house, her chest tight. Later that week, their next event, Ayurveda board charity luncheon, filled with sharp suits and sharper smiles. Ethan was calm, practiced, the perfect host.
But halfway through the speeches, a sudden microphone failure left the stage silent, and the host gestured nervously for Ethan to speak. He hesitated, clearly caught off guard, when Anna rose without thinking. "While we wait," she said, smiling at the crowd, "perhaps I can tell you something I learned from Mr. Cole." The room quieted. "He once told me success is not about power or money, but about people who make you remember how to breathe." The words came out simple but sincere. When she sat down, Ethan looked at her, stunned. For the first time, his smile reached his eyes. Afterward, as they walked to the car, he said quietly, "You handled that beautifully." "Thank you." "It is what a wife would do," she replied. He gave a short laugh, shaking his head. "You are learning too quickly." The ride home was silent, but the silence felt different, less like distance and more like something waiting to be spoken. When they reached the mansion, Anna stepped out first, glancing back at him. "Maybe you should let yourself breathe, Mr. Cole," she said softly. He watched her walk away, her words lingering in the night air. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole felt something that no contract could define. The following days carried a strange quiet between Anna and Ethan. Something had shifted since that night on the terrace and the charity luncheon. It was subtle, unspoken, but it was there like a thread of warmth woven into the cold pattern of their contract. The mansion no longer felt like a cage. It felt like a place holding its breath. Every morning, Ethan still left early, but now he paused at the kitchen doorway to say, "Good morning, Mrs. Cole." Every evening, he asked, "Have you eaten?" Small gestures, almost accidental, yet they changed everything. Anna tried not to overthink it. She reminded herself that this was business, that kindness did not mean affection, that contracts did not turn into love stories. But her heart, stubborn and human, did not care about logic. One Friday afternoon, Julia came rushing into Anna's dressing room with a clipboard in hand. "Tomorrow is the investors' gala," she said. "It will be your biggest test yet. Every major shareholder will be there, including members of the board who still doubt Mr. Cole's leadership after last quarter's scandal." Anna's pulse quickened.
And what do they expect from me? Charm, Julia said flatly. And perfection. The next evening, the ballroom at the Grand Meridian Hotel glittered with chandeliers and silver tablecloths. Anna's gown was ivory silk, simple but luminous. When she stepped into the room beside Ethan, every camera turned toward them. He looked at her briefly, and in that glance was something protective, something almost tender. "You will be fine," he said softly. "Just be yourself." The event began smoothly. Anna smiled, answered polite questions, and followed Ethan's lead through introductions. But when a journalist cornered them with a microphone and said, "People say your marriage came out of nowhere, Mr. Cole. Was it really love at first sight?" the air thickened. Ethan hesitated, clearly caught off guard. Anna felt the weight of every eye in the room. Then she smiled and said, "Love is rarely planned. Sometimes it begins with a mistake and a cup of coffee." The crowd laughed gently. Cameras flashed. Ethan exhaled a quiet sigh of relief. Later, as the music started, he offered her his hand. "Dance with me," he said. "It will keep the photographers happy." "Of course," she said, placing her hand in his. But as they moved to the slow rhythm, it felt too natural, too real. His hand rested lightly at her waist, his eyes holding hers with something she could not name. "You are getting good at this," he murmured. "At pretending," she replied softly. "Are you?" He did not answer. Instead, he guided her through the next step with effortless grace, his expression unreadable but his touch steady. When the music ended, the applause was loud, but Anna barely heard it. Her heartbeat drowned everything out. Later that night, back at the mansion, she sat by the piano, tracing the keys with her fingertips. Ethan entered quietly, loosening his tie. "You looked beautiful tonight," he said simply. "You played the part perfectly." "So did you," she said without looking up. "That is what we are, right? Two people playing parts." He hesitated, then walked closer. "Maybe," he said, his voice lower now, "but sometimes it does not feel like an act." She finally looked up at him. The air between them felt electric, fragile. For a moment, neither moved. Then his phone buzzed on the counter, breaking the spell. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightened.
"I need to take this," he said, his voice back to its usual calm. "It is the board." He left the room, and the silence that followed felt colder than before. Anna sat alone, staring at the untouched piano keys, realizing that the most dangerous part of their deal was not the lies they told the world. It was the truth they were starting to tell themselves. The next morning, she woke to find a small note slipped under her door in Ethan's handwriting, "Breakfast at 8. You did well last night." It was short, businesslike, but the ink carried a trace of something human. Anna smiled to herself before setting the note on her nightstand. For the first time, the mansion felt a little less like someone else's world and a little more like her own. The following week brought an unexpected calm, as if the chaos of public events had settled into a quiet rhythm. Ethan seemed softer somehow. He no longer looked through Anna as though she were a part of the arrangement. Instead, he looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to remember something he had forgotten about being human. Their mornings began with shared coffee instead of silence, their evenings often ended with small talk that felt too easy to be scripted. One night, as rain tapped gently against the wide windows of the study, Ethan poured himself a drink and gestured for her to sit. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked suddenly. "Signing that contract?" Anna thought for a moment. "I do not regret helping my mother," she said. "But sometimes I wonder if I lost a piece of myself in the process." Ethan nodded slowly, staring into his glass. "I know what that feels like." His tone was softer than she had ever heard. "When my father died, I thought I had to become everything he wanted me to be: strong, unshakable, perfect. But perfection is exhausting." Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. "You do not have to be perfect, Ethan." He looked at her then, and for a moment, the air between them shifted. The tension that had followed them for weeks turned into something quieter, deeper, something that felt dangerously close to truth. He set his glass down and smiled faintly. You keep saying things no one dares to tell me. Maybe they are afraid of losing their jobs, she said lightly. He chuckled under his breath. You are not afraid of me, are you? Not anymore, she said, and she meant it.
That night, she could not sleep. She replayed the look in his eyes, the warmth in his voice. Something was changing, something neither of them could stop. The next morning, Ethan invited her to his office downtown. There is a meeting with the board, he said. You do not have to be there, but I would like you to see what this world really looks like. The conference room was sleek, filled with glass walls and stern faces. Anna sat quietly at the side as the discussion began. The board members spoke about numbers, mergers, and public image. But what caught Anna's attention was the way Ethan's expression hardened when a man named Victor mentioned restructuring. Cutting the foundation's funding will free resources for expansion, Victor said. Ethan's voice dropped coldly. That foundation feeds 2,000 families every month, Victor. We are not touching it. The room went silent. Victor smirked. Sentiment does not grow profit, Ethan. And profit without purpose is hollow, Ethan replied. His tone carried a quiet authority that silenced the argument. Anna watched him, proud in a way she did not expect to feel. After the meeting, as they rode the elevator down, Ethan glanced at her reflection in the mirrored wall. You look like you wanted to throw your coffee at Victor, he said with a faint smile. I almost did, she replied, and they both laughed for the first time without pretense. That evening, back at the mansion, Ethan found her sitting by the piano again. Play something, he said quietly. I cannot play, she answered. Then try. She pressed a single key, then another, and soon a clumsy melody filled the room. Ethan leaned against the wall, listening. It is terrible, she said, laughing. It is honest, he replied. That is why I like it. When she looked up, his gaze was steady, warm, and unguarded. Neither spoke, but the silence said everything. Later, when Anna returned to her room, she found another note waiting for her on the dresser. It was written in Ethan's bold handwriting. Thank you for reminding me what it means to breathe. She held the note to her chest, realizing the truth she could no longer deny. The contract had begun as a transaction, but now it felt like the most fragile secret they both shared.
What scared her most was not the lie they were living, it was the possibility that somewhere along the way, it had stopped being a lie at all. The following week brought an unexpected calm, as if the chaos of public events had settled into a quiet rhythm. Ethan seemed softer somehow. He no longer looked through Anna as though she were a part of the arrangement. Instead, he looked at her, really looked, like he was trying to remember something he had forgotten about being human. Their mornings began with shared coffee instead of silence, their evenings often ended with small talk that felt too easy to be scripted. One night, as rain tapped gently against the wide windows of the study, Ethan poured himself a drink and gestured for her to sit. Do you ever regret it? He asked suddenly. Signing that contract? Anna thought for a moment. I do not regret helping my mother, she said. But sometimes I wonder if I lost a piece of myself in the process. Ethan nodded slowly, staring into his glass. I know what that feels like. His tone was softer than she had ever heard. When my father died, I thought I had to become everything he wanted me to be: strong, unshakable, perfect. But perfection is exhausting. Anna's voice was barely above a whisper. You do not have to be perfect, Ethan. He looked at her then, and for a moment, the air between them shifted. The tension that had followed them for weeks turned into something quieter, deeper, something that felt dangerously close to truth. He set his glass down and smiled faintly. You keep saying things no one dares to tell me. Maybe they are afraid of losing their jobs, she said lightly. He chuckled under his breath. You are not afraid of me, are you? Not anymore, she said, and she meant it. That night, she could not sleep. She replayed the look in his eyes, the warmth in his voice. Something was changing, something neither of them could stop. The next morning, Ethan invited her to his office downtown. "There is a meeting with the board," he said. "You do not have to be there, but I would like you to see what this world really looks like." The conference room was sleek, filled with glass walls and stern faces. Anna sat quietly at the side as the discussion began. The board members spoke about numbers, mergers, and public image.
But what caught Anna's attention was the way Ethan's expression hardened when a man named Victor mentioned restructuring. "Cutting the foundation's funding will free resources for expansion," Victor said. Ethan's voice dropped coldly. "That foundation feeds 2,000 families every month, Victor. We are not touching it." The room went silent. Victor smirked. "Sentiment does not grow profit, Ethan. And profit without purpose is hollow," Ethan replied. His tone carried a quiet authority that silenced the argument. Anna watched him, proud in a way she did not expect to feel. After the meeting, as they rode the elevator down, Ethan glanced at her reflection in the mirrored wall. "You looked like you wanted to throw your coffee at Victor," he said with a faint smile. "I almost did," she replied, and they both laughed for the first time without pretense. That evening, back at the mansion, Ethan found her sitting by the piano again. "Play something," he said quietly. "I cannot play," she answered. "Then try." She pressed a single key, then another, and soon a clumsy melody filled the room. Ethan leaned against the wall, listening. "It is terrible," she said, laughing. "It is honest," he replied. "That is why I like it." When she looked up, his gaze was steady, warm, and unguarded. Neither spoke, but the silence said everything. Later, when Anna returned to her room, she found another note waiting for her on the dresser. It was written in Ethan's bold handwriting. "Thank you for reminding me what it means to breathe." She held the note to her chest, realizing the truth she could no longer deny. The contract had begun as a transaction, but now it felt like the most fragile secret they both shared. What scared her most was not the lie they were living, it was the possibility that somewhere along the way, it had stopped being a lie at all. The morning after the scandal broke, the world seemed to turn upside down. News outlets flooded with headlines, accusing Anna of being nothing more than a paid actress in a fake marriage. The story spread like wildfire. Photographs, forged emails, and anonymous statements from someone inside Cole Media claiming that the entire relationship had been a publicity stunt. Anna sat on the edge of her bed, her phone buzzing nonstop with calls she could not bear to answer.
Her heart pounded as the comments poured in, cruel words from strangers who did not know her at all. When she finally gathered the courage to leave her room, she found Ethan downstairs, pacing the living room with his phone in hand. His expression was sharp, colder than she had ever seen. "It was Victor," he said tightly. "He leaked the contract. He wants the board to vote me out." Anna's voice shook. "And now everyone thinks I am a liar." Ethan stopped pacing, looking at her for a long moment. "Give it a few days. My team will handle it." His tone was calm, almost detached. It hurt more than the rumors themselves. "Handle it," she repeated, disbelief cracking her voice. "This is my life, Ethan. I am being humiliated in front of the entire world." "I told you from the beginning that this was business," he said quietly. "You knew the risks." The words cut deep. "So that is all this was to you? A calculated deal?" His silence was the answer she feared. Without another word, she turned away, tears blurring her vision as she ran upstairs. The mansion that had once felt like a strange kind of home now felt like a gilded prison. That night, she packed her suitcase, leaving behind the dresses, the jewelry, and the handwritten notes she had once treasured. She paused only once at the front door, glancing back at the grand staircase where they had first spoken as husband and wife. "Goodbye, Mr. Cole," she whispered, then stepped out into the rain. The following day, the tabloids showed Ethan attending a press conference alone, his jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. Cameras flashed as reporters shouted questions about his marriage. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he took a breath and spoke into the microphone. "The rumors are true," he said. "There was a contract. I created it. But what began as business became something I could not control. I hurt someone who did not deserve it, and I intend to make it right. The room erupted with questions, but Ethan walked away without another word. Hours later, Anna watched the footage from a cheap motel room, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, he had not hidden behind his image. For the first time, he had chosen honesty over control. A soft knock on the door startled her. When she opened it, Julia stood there, holding an envelope. "He asked me to give you this," she said gently.
Inside was a handwritten note. It read, "Tomorrow, noon, the same terrace. If you still believe in second chances, I will be there." Anna stared at the words, her heart pounding. After everything, the lies, the pain, the public humiliation part of her wanted to stay away. But another part, the part that had fallen for the man behind the title, whispered that maybe, just maybe, love was worth a risk. The next day arrived with soft gray skies and a cool breeze that carried the scent of rain. Anna stood on the familiar terrace where everything between them had quietly begun. The city stretched beneath her, glittering in the distance, just as it had the first night Ethan told her about his father. She clutched the note in her hand, unsure if she was ready to face him again. Then she heard the sound of footsteps. Ethan appeared at the doorway. No suit, no entourage, just a man stripped of titles and armor. For a long moment, neither spoke. He was the first to break the silence. "You came," he said softly. "I did not know if you would." Anna's voice trembled, but her gaze held steady. "I almost did not. You hurt me, Ethan. You made me believe that what we had was real. Then you hid behind the contract when it mattered most." Ethan nodded slowly. "You are right. I did hide. I spent so long protecting my name that I forgot what it means to protect a person. You changed that. You made me see what success without kindness looks like." He took a hesitant step closer, his voice steady but vulnerable. "I canceled the merger. I resigned from the board this morning. I am starting a foundation in your name, one that helps small artists and single mothers get back on their feet. It is called the Second Chance Project." Anna blinked, stunned. "Why would you do that?" "Because you gave me mine," he said quietly. The wind brushed between them, carrying away the last of their silence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. It was a simple silver ring, delicate and unpolished, the opposite of everything his world represented. "This time there is no contract," he said. "No terms, no publicity, no conditions. Just one question." He stepped closer and knelt, holding out the ring. "Will you marry me for real, Anna Reed?"
"Not for the cameras, not for my image, but because I cannot imagine my life without you." Tears welled in her eyes, falling freely before she could stop them. "You are impossible," she whispered. "So are you," he said with a smile. She let out a shaky laugh and nodded. "Yes, Ethan. But only if you promise not to make me sign anything again." He laughed softly, slipping the ring onto her finger. "Deal," he said. Then he stood, pulling her into an embrace that felt like home. In that moment, the noise of the city faded, and all that remained was the quiet truth of two people who had finally stopped pretending. Weeks later, the tabloids carried a different headline: "Ethan Cole steps away from empire to build a foundation with his wife." But the real story never made the news. It lived in the small cafe they opened together on a quiet corner of the city. Above the door hung a sign in simple letters: "The Spill." Inside, a framed photo of a coffee-stained suit hung on the wall with a handwritten note beneath it: "The best mistakes are the ones that teach us how to love." And every morning, when Ethan brewed the first cup, he smiled at Anna and said, "This time, I will try not to spill it." She would laugh, shake her head, and reply, "I would not mind if you did." Because for them, every drop, every flaw, every accident had led exactly where it was meant to.